Okay, hi. Let's hope that I'm going to go stop sharing this screen. Hi there. All right, we're live tonight. It's Monday evening, and this is Monday's Mindset, Meditation, and Doodle. I've been doing this earlier in the day, but I had some other fun things come up. Spend some time with my mom a little bit, and then I have a grandchild that is getting ready to make her appearance. And so been on the phone quite a bit with my daughter, not my youngest, but the next one up. So anyway, I won't say her name right now because of privacy, but very, very exciting, very exciting. Her first little child, and we're excited for that. So what I wanted to do was take a moment though, get on here and spend some time with you on being creative and give you a really neat little saying that I came across that I thought would be something great to focus on for this week, especially for here where I'm located at today, because we have quite a bit of rain going on. And so this, I thought, well, this is a great quote to use. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about here. There we go. It took me a second to get that all organized, but this is it. This is what we're going to be watercoloring tonight. And I've made a template that you can actually look at as we're going along. You just follow me as you go along. For those of you that are going to become part of our village, my village, the Real Positive Change Village, which you can find out all about that on my website, realpositivechange.com. This template will be in there as well as this recording. You'll be able to find this recording also, though, in my group that I have, RPC, The Artisan's Journey. So you can find the video there to look over this and to be able to follow it at that time. Okay, let me just see if I can see what I'm doing here. Just trying to see if I can see some of the comments, but I'm not getting myself hooked up for that exactly. Okay, I can see it. Took me a second. All right, let's get started. What I did is I went ahead and I took my template. I am using a 7x10 mixed media page. And I wanted to try something different. So that's why I used the mixed media instead of my watercolor page. But I always like to put some kind of a border on here to keep the edges really sharp. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, here's one I've done before earlier, and you can see it's got the sharp edges. So when you pull that tape off, you can have that really crisp edge. I went ahead and I'm using washi tape. So we'll see if that was a total disaster or not when I'm through. I do have some painter's tape, but I wanted something that was a little bit thin, that was, well, actually quite a bit thinner. The painter's tape that I like to use is twice the size. See that? It's definitely twice the size. So I wanted something smaller to give me more of a surface to work with. I took my template and I took some graphite paper, placed the graphite paper, put this on, and then I've gone ahead and I've already started tracing that out so that I have a template. And the reason I did this is because I want you to realize that it's really easy to do this, to create a fun journal page, something that is artistic. A lot of times people will shy away from it because they think, oh, I can't draw, or I'm not artistic, but it can be very simple and it can be a lot of fun. And it's okay to use a template. I mean, obviously, if it's something that's copywritten, you don't want to be doing that. but this is just, if it's something that's been made up or you create yourself, then you're able to transfer it onto your art journal and go from there. So that's why I wanted to use this, is I want you to be able to see that you don't have to have do it completely. You don't have to do it freehand all the time. You can use a template if you're feeling that you need a little bit of support. And if you don't, by all means, go ahead and do it freehand and follow along. So I've got this figured out. I'm going to go ahead and get my water and my paints. And let's just start with, I went ahead and used a fine tip. Is this an ultra fine or a fine tip? This was an ultra fine Sharpie. And that's what I used to go ahead and I wrote out the words. I'm going to do the background, create the flowers, and then I'll come back and use the Sharpie to outline those. And I want to keep this in a reasonable time. This is just a demo. It's not actually a class, even though you can follow along with me and create it yourself. The classes, like I said, I've got those in the village library that's put away there. Okay, so let's see what we have here. What kind of a background? I'm feeling like I want something bright for this. And let's see. The more you work with me, you will realize that I am not a person who, I do love to look at mute colors, colors that are very earthy and natural, and that I do love that, but I love bright colors. I love bright colors. And that's what I'm feeling like tonight. So let's go ahead and add something here. It's a fuchsia. I love hot pink, apple green, oranges. I love bright colors, but go ahead and add that here. Let's do a wash on this. Just start going across. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with my washi tape as I do this project, but this will be an experiment and you will learn at the same time if it works or if it doesn't. It just happened to be on sale and it was inexpensive. And I thought, I want to try that because getting the thinner tape can be a little costly. Now, I like a lot of variation in my backgrounds. The darks, the lights. I purposely do not make it all the same shades. And I like the streaking that the watercolor creates. So I leave that because I think I love the texture. And I'm going just through right now and just putting a nice first layer. And actually all I'm doing right at this moment is just adding water and pulling the color, the pigment that I already have on the page. Keeping my brush pretty wet. We go across. All right. We keep on moving down here. If you're new to my page in that, go ahead and hit the like button and so you can get notified when I pop on. Typically I like to do things during the day. I feel a little bit more alert and sharp, but I just thought, why not try an evening one? See how that goes. It's easier for a lot of other people because they've gotten off of work and they're able to participate or watch while they're relaxing. All right. Get right in that tiny little area. And I have right here on the paper, it looks like it's just a pencil line or something. So I'm going to erase that off, because once you put the watercolor on, then you can't get it back off. So if you don't want it on there, try to get it off beforehand. Look at the wonderful texture that's being created there. I really love that. Love what watercolor can do. Find it extremely relaxing. So this actually could be a really great project, or just something fun to do after a long day. So when we're talking doodle, we're not talking a major masterpiece here. Although I do love how many of these turn out. I don't know that there's been one that I haven't really liked the results. There's no pressure to it. It just, look at that. See all that texture and how that's just, I think that's so awesome. It's really fun. And what I've done here, if you've noticed, I mean, I didn't really intend to do this, but I've left this white in this area, thinking I might go ahead and bring in a little color here, but leave that right in that area, just the white paper. Now, if you've wet an area, this is really cool. If you're new to this, it's something, and you touch that water, the pigment, the paint will go wherever the water is. So I'm wanting it to be darker, closer towards these flowers, but I really want it to be light going up towards those words. There we go. Reaching down into my palette here. And I'm going to add some pigment here and some pigment here, and see how it just takes off all by its little self. You don't have to do too much to it. It just starts moving on its own. Wherever that water is, it flows. Okay. Let's make it a little darker. Adding a little more pigment to that. Just blending it out. Now I do have some paper towel. Use some sort of towel to wipe your brush off when you start changing, or to take some of that water off if it gets too much. Let me move this back a little bit. There we go. Because I don't want to over soak the page, especially since this is mixed media. It can handle the watercolor, but you start getting too much water on it and it will buckle quite a bit. But once it dries out really well. Do I have my dryer here? Yes, I do. So if I need it, I am good to go. Right, we're going to move from this one. Look what I'm going to do here. I'm going to move the color up towards, get a little lighter. Just using very carefully the tip of my brush right there. Want to leave a lot of that variation, gives it shading. Okay, I'm going straight in with color here. Now this leaf comes up under here, but I'm going to put some color here to the background, and then I'll have the leaf go on this side of it. Right, let's see, the leaf goes there. Let's move this up here a little bit closer in. This is a great project to start with. It's simple enough for the beginner, anybody who just wants to test it out and try it. There we go. Let's add a little more water. There we go. Okay, I'm going to leave this because it just makes it, it highlights it, it pops it out. Do you see that? And I'm going to blend this out a little bit more so it's not a definite sharp line. Wonderful. Okay, that, and we can always come back and make it a little darker in areas that we want. What I might do is, I don't know if you can see, yes, you can. See up here how that's just making that wonderful texture, that kind of blending down. I'm going to do that down here also, or at least put extra pigment down here. Just like that. All right. I'm going to use a vibrant orange. Let's start right here with these petals. And that is a bright color right there. Just mixing it on around. I'm wanting it a little lighter towards the center, but I'll be adding some color to that. Not sure exactly what yet, but all right. And I'm not super careful. You noticed it went outside of the line a little bit. You might not be able to tell that in the camera, but it went out just a little bit. Then that, to me, that's just the nature of watercolor. I don't want to control it. If I wanted to control something completely, I would be using acrylics, or I'd use another medium. The reason I am using the watercolor is I would like its nature. It just wants to move and flow. And so why try to stop it? That's what I'm wanting it to do. If you're on here and you're watching, put down a comment. Let me know you're there. It's kind of fun to know who's. Say hello. Tell me where you're from. All right, we've got that orange, and I'm going to let it sit. Notice I've got a lot of different things going on there, but I'm going to let it sit for a minute, do its thing, and I'm going to move. Let's see. I definitely want to use red, so I'm going to use red there. And I believe what I will do is put this one up here, orange. Yes. So let's do the same thing with this one up here. And I'm going to move this so it's closer to me and I'm not leaning over so far. Make sure it's still in the picture. There we go. I'm a lefty, so it's easier if I turn it. Typically, I'll put the water first, and then I will add the pigment and let it do its flow and move, but I'm wanting this to be a quicker demo tonight than I've been known when I'm just enjoying myself and recording some of these to actually go on for 3 hours. And it's fun because those that have joined me maybe on the Zoom that I've put them on and that, and so we can communicate. They're having a great time too. So it's funny how you just lose track of time when you're doing this. But I'm wanting. Now I'm going to go back here and lift up some of this and bring it over on this side. And I do that simply by just taking my brush, lifting it, and then depositing it where I want it to go. I'm going to clean off my brush. Water. Okay, and then I'm going to see if this will work. I've got watercolor. I'm just going to lift it. See, you can lift it up. If you do go outside the line and you don't really like that, you can lift it with your brush like that. Clean it off. You need to do it while it's wet. If you let it dry, it's not as easy. Let's see what happens over here. This one has dried. See if it'll still work. And it looks like it's working, but it's not super dark. So imagine if it was a pretty dark spot of pigment, it might not lift as easily. There we go. Okay, this is just the first layer. So we're going to go back and we'll add some more color to it. Now I'm going to go back to, I might go with this one while it's doing. And I'm going to go to a darker shade of the orange. I'm just going to hit right here. And while it's wet, see how it's blending out? It's wonderful. Let it do its own little travel up those petals. On your end, it may be looking a little bit like it's a mess right now, like got a lot of water there. So I've dried off my brush and I'm just putting it down and it's going to soak up some of that water. And see how it lifted that right up right there. So I can go back in and add. I didn't want a puddle. This is the doodle part. We're just letting it do its thing. Okay, well, that's sitting there. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add some water because I'd like it to do the same thing. And I'm just going to go around the petals here, have some of them go down a little further. And then I'm going to add that darker color. And just coax it a little, give it a little coaxing. Encourage it to send itself out there. Okay. I have to look up every once in a while. Kind of off camera. I had one sweet friend lady the other day tell me, You're off camera. She sent me a comment, so please just post a comment if you see that. Let me know. Okay. I'm moving quickly, so all right. Let's see here. This one, I will do a dark hot pink like this, and I'm going to come back with a red. Just thinking that's what I'm going to do. So let's try it. Let's start with the red first. And I am going to go. Let's see. Kind of testing them out here to see what the colors are. That's a magenta. That's what I've already got. And this one. All right. So need to put some water down on my palette. See what I'm doing here. And I'm picking up this one right here. And we're going to, let's see. I'm going to do this. And I'm giving it a coat first. Make sure you can see this. Still moving fast. You know, as you go along, you'll start out with one idea, and then you, as you're working, you'll maybe change your mind, and that's okay. But for example, I'm liking this. This is actually the color I wanted to go a darker shade. It's not the magenta that I used here. It's a totally different one, but it's nice. So I believe what I will do is going to make that a hot red. I'm going to put the red down here. I don't know if they will work well together, but we will see. All right. I'm going to just keep adding that color because I want this to be really strong. And vibrant. Right. How's everyone doing? How are we doing there? Okay, that's not the color I used. Is that other color? This is the color. Yep, there we go. See if it will take off a little bit. Blending itself out. There we go. when it dries, it always dries lighter. So it will dry quite a bit lighter. Okay, leave that. I'm going to come back to the other color that I had, and let's see what this. Since it's an orange, but to me it looks like it's a orange red. It's a little wet there, so I'm carefully, because once you hit, if you hit one one area that's wet with another area, they will start to blend together. So that can be an awesome thing, or it can be not so good. It just depends. This is like a red orange, but I'm going to. Okay, now this pink here is a little wet, so, but I'm being quick and daring. I'll probably take let's take a second and let the air dry on this for a second. I'll use my heat gun. Okay, that is an orange red. All right. Let's go ahead and add some of this now. Now I dried that pretty good. There's my red. Can you believe it's the 1st of March? I mean, I'm super glad because I love springtime and everything, but I can't believe how fast everything's moving. It's going so quickly. Now, see, that was super dry, so it needs water. Give it some water. And I'm leaving a lot of that pigment there. Coming over here, and I'll pull from this because I have a lot of water there to fill in these others. This is actually the same color that I used up here. So in my palette, I don't have a true, like a fire engine red. This is really what I'm wanting. I wanted to go with was like a fire engine red, but I'm going to mix a little bit. Let's tap some of that off and create some different shades. Okay. Let's go back to, they call this permanent red, but to me, it still has too much of a Must have a lot of blue undertone or something. Yeah. Let's see what I can add to that to make it. Let's try. What is that? Pheromone. See what happens when I add that. It gives there. It's doing something. I love the saying on this. Okay, so I've gone outside of this. I'm going to try to lift some of this up a little bit. Just scrub back and forth with your brush and then carefully dab. Lift it up. Wonderful. Carefully put that on that back little area like that. Let's finish out these little petals. There, this is turning out great. If you're working along with me and you're part of the RPC Artisans Journey, the group, it's a free group, then post it so we can enjoy each other's work. Encourage each other as we're going along. Right. I'm going to leave that one as that way. And I'll come back with this fuchsia and see what happens when I add that. I'm just doing another layer over. Don't you love watercolors? I love the textures they create. I love the free spirit that they have. They just flow, and you really have to just let yourself, I don't know, you can't be too tied up into making everything. Okay, I'm blending that so I don't have a straight across line. There. I think that's turning out really great. That's awesome. I'm gonna stop there at that and we'll go to the leaves. Dry that. Okay. Now for the leaves, I'm going to start with really a yellow green light. Put just the first coat down. We're doing on time. We're doing great. Some more of that in my brush. And then I'll come back with an avocado olive green. That's a personal preference. You might like more of an emerald green or a forest green. I am just partial to the avocado green. It has a moss look to it. And this is actually supposed to be a light avocado is what they're naming it as, but to me it's not, it doesn't look that way to me, but it's not I didn't make the paint, so I don't get to choose the color or name the color. All right, so that wasn't completely dry. As you saw, it started bleeding. Maybe I'll just dab it with and pull that up. Make sure my paintbrush is cleaned off so I don't pull red over here. And I'm going to need to let that dry a little bit more right here so that, because I do want that distinction. Between the leaf and the flower. Typically, I like things to bleed into one another, but I do want this distinction between these two. All right, now I'm going to go back in and we'll pull up dark. And I've sent this out over my Real Positive Change page and the group page. So you may be able to see it in a couple spots. All right, we're going to go right in here. And because that has dried, it's not wanting to bleed, which is awesome. Add some water to that so that it will flow. Cleaning my brush. I'm going to lift up. I don't want I want the green there, the darker, but I don't want to lose some of that light. So I'm going to lift some of this up. And I always like to make it darker at the tips. Oh, don't know exactly why, but that's just the way I like it. So I'll put more pigment here, let it blend down. And more to the sides. Put more pigment up closer towards the petals. I think so it gives it the illusion or the idea of it being, shaded a little bit. And it's going to have a vein up this way. Whoops. It's going to have a vein. So I'll come back and create a line there and it can kind of bleed itself out. And then I'll just draw it in later. See how that's working? That's working perfectly. All right. This one is still a little damp, which is great. So while it's still a little damp, I go ahead and add the pigment. I'm following along the edge of the leaf. And then I'll add water and let it blend in towards the center. Before it dries like that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my water and just pull it. Get it in towards the flower. If you go over the flower, just wipe it up real quick. I'm going to pull up some of that red that went there. So I'm going to scrub back and forth and see if I can't lift up some of that. And then come in with a dark pigment of the green. Right? They're making progress. This is awesome. I'll do this dark in here because typically the flowers over the top would make it, would give it a shade, a shadow. And I'm going to pull up this green. Just by touching it, it lifted some of that up. And I'm coming back in with the darker color here too. Water and blend that. And because I want it to have some variation, I'm going to lift some of this color up here on the middle part of the leaf, leaving it darker where the vein would be and on the edges. I'm coming back in and tapping along the edge a little bit just to give it some more. And I'll be putting a dark line there with the marker, so might want to tap out because that marker will cover up some of that. So go ahead and tap out into the leaf a little bit more. All right. I'm going to turn it so that I can, remember I'm left-handed, so it's easier for me to, that way I'm not putting my hand across any of the wet paint. And I am putting this pigment, this is pretty dry right there. So I'm going to take some water, kind of dab it off on my towel a little bit so it's not super soaked. But just add it and let it blend into it. Come back right here, close to the petal. I want that dark. Then I'm just tapping at the leaf. Just tap at the leaf. Let the color go this way and take the point of your brush and tap the edge of that leaf. Pull that shading up. Like so. See that? Can kind of just gently, very lightly brush over it and it will shade it. And on camera, it went pretty much, I mean, I see a variation of color here on camera. It just looks like it all went to the same color, but I'm going to go ahead and put some more just right along the edge here. Brushing in towards the center of the leaf. Give it my shadowing, my shading. Perfect. Love that. Now, I'm going to be a little adventurous here. And typically I don't like this color. I mean, I do like this color of green, but not. But I'm going to add it really carefully. Just here and there. And let's see what it does. I don't want to add too much to it. I'm wetting my brush, cleaning it, and then I'm just coming back with water. And I'm just going to tap it with the water so that I can fade it out. All right. Let's do this same thing right here. Add a little bit of that color. I'm going to pull that out and I'll add some right here and pull that out too. And I'll go ahead. I don't want to do too many areas at one time because you need to be able to come back with the water pretty quickly so that it doesn't dry on you. Cleaning my brush so I don't have too much pigment on it. So there's actually no pigment on it at all. It's just straight water. And then I'll just tap and encourage it to pull itself out. Lighten that a little bit. Right. Got a little bit different leaf there than the other one. This one is definitely more olive green. This has so I'm going to come back and add that to that one. Let's add some water. And I'm wetting the area just a little bit before I start, where I'm going to want that green to concentrate itself. Then I'm coming back in and I'll just tap. Like so. Right? There. Come back so it's a little darker. Doing that around the edges. And then letting it gradually go lighter in towards the center. Still have pigment on my brush, so I'm going to move it over on this side so I don't waste that. Like so. Just pick it up and put it in another location. Clean water. Let's blend that. Now I'm going to come back with my avocado green. And I'm getting a lot of water there, so I'm going to tap it, and that'll soak up some of that excess water. I don't want to lose that avocado green and have it taken over by the emerald green. So I'm coming back in with that and making sure that I'm hitting all the areas. Okay, that's great. Went over on that pet a little bit with my green, so I got to lift it up. Now, how did I do that? You just remember, you wet your brush, clean water, clean, or, without any pigment on your brush, then come back and just wipe it up. Wipe it off on your brush there. All right, let's do these other two leaves. We're coming along here. Start with our avocado green. Just randomly moving my brush. Really get some color down that center where that vein is, over on the edges. I'm getting kind of bold now. See, I'm just laying that color down there. That's okay. That's what I want you to be, is bold when you're doing this. Okay, I'm moving that around. All right. I'm going to lift up some of that and blend it here instead of having it pool. I want that texture though. That's creating quite a bit of texture on that leaf, which is great. Okay, we're coming back over now. We're going to work on this one. There. All right, I'm going to go back to that emerald green. Add that. A few spots, just so that it's congruent with what I've got going on. Not every leaf needs to be exactly the same. There's no, leaves aren't exactly the same on a bush anyway. Blend that out. The fun thing about watercolor is you introduce the color and with the water, and it just starts creating its own little, I mean, there's some things you want to watch out for, and that is the mixing. If you start mixing complementary colors, then they'll turn to a brown. So if you're trying to keep the color and you don't want that brown to happen, you don't want to be mixing complementaries next to each other at least. Okay, I went out there. We're going to lift that up a little. Perfect. Pulling up some of that pigment with my brush and just relocating it. Great. That's turning out perfect. I'm going to come back with some of the avocado. Introducing that back in. Okay. Right. Now, I'm gonna have these be Shasta daisies in the back, and there'll be a black center inside there. But I think what I'll do is there a, go ahead and maybe add a black watercolor right now to it. I'm wanting to make sure that these flowers are dry though, because I'm not wanting that black to necessarily, well, it could blend down in there and make them a little richer in the, let's see. Just put a little bit and just kind of add some shadowing to it, and that'll make it, see, that just brings it out a little, some depth to that. You could do this with your marker, but I'm going to do it with the watercolor. Just add a little bit of the black and it will make it darker in towards so that it has a feeling of it kind of recessing in versus just laying there flat on the page. Okay, it's getting kind of dark out here, so I'm going to lift some of that with my brush. Just like that. Awesome. All right, let's do the same thing here. Get some of that black down in there and be careful you don't go really far out. It's better to start close into the flower, just a little bit at a time, because it's easier to add more than it is to take it away. And it can start moving away from you pretty quick. Okay. I'm just pushing it out down a little bit so that I'm going to come back in with that black. I'm going to dab it here and there. See, that gives it the feeling of those leaves, of where those petals come together. And like I said, you could do this with your marker. Okay. To hit this one too a little bit. A little shadowing around it. With that, I don't want it to be black, but I just want it to be dark. Just that shade color. That's how you get that shadow. Here, let it step out there. Okay, and I'm going to do the last one over here. The same thing. Now this one is completely dry, so I'm just going to tap it a little bit and then I'll add water, because see how I'm doing that? Now, my brush, and then just add some water around it. Just zigzaggy back a little bit, back and forth. Okay. I'm lifting it, drying my brush a little bit, and I'm going to pull that back towards the center. I pull it back in towards the center because I don't want the darkness going out into the petal. I want the petals to stay a really pretty vibrant color, but I do want it to shade, have that shadow. I pulled quite a bit of it up there. Right? I'm just tapping it away at it. Back with my brush. I've cleaned it out. I'm just pulling it towards the center. Pull it towards the center. Because you don't want it to go down your petal. You want it to go in towards the middle. All right. And I'm going to come out here and just gently scrub a little bit because I want to lift some of that off. I don't want to have a definite ring going around it. That's why I'm doing this. Fantastic. There we go. Let's see, what else? Is there something else? I think the background needs, for me personally, it needs something else to it. So let's see. Let's go with I don't know, let's go with a turquoise. And I'm just going to hit the edges with it. I don't want it to be, I just want the, oops, sorry, the hint of it right there. See, I don't want to vibrant. I just want the hint of it. I'm not going to do all over. Now I'm dabbing with the color and having it just, I'm going to have it move itself. I'll actually lift up the page here in a second and let it flow itself in. And I'm really hoping that this tape is keeping a nice clean edge. If it doesn't, I will have learned my lesson on this particular piece. Okay, I went outside of that. Got a lot of water there. I'm lifting it. Okay, we're going to lift this up so that it can flow. And I'll just come back. And I'm just dabbing it. I'm just creating a texture here is all I'm doing. Okay, I've dried my brush. I don't have any pigment on it. I don't want to really create a definite line there, but it looks like it's creating something of that. So I'm going to move it around a little bit. I'm going to move it up towards the leaf to keep from having too much of a definite, this is where this ends and this is where this starts kind of feel, you know? Okay, great. Now we have the turquoise down here. It's nice to have the eye move around the whole page. I've talked about this before in other videos. I gotta move my paints. So to do that, I'm going to come up in this corner so that you go back and forth. And I'll add that same color up here in this corner. And I'm just going off the edge. I'm coming on the edge, coming back off there. Randomly moving it back and forth. Okay. Right. Okay, and I'm moving that back and forth. We'll let that dry. And then I'm going to come back in with the markers. We'll just call that good right there. Another thing I can use is an ink pad. Let's take a second and dry that. All right, I was looking for an ink pad too as I'm sitting there. Oh, that's nice and dry. It's feeling great. Okay, now let's do the final touches. Call it good. Take my Sharpie. I'm going to use the fine tip instead of the ultra fine. And let's start up here. And we just start outlining it. Am I on time? I'm over. And I'm not being super exact on this either. It looks like I'm kind of rushing, which I am, but I'm not being super crazy about having to have everything exact. My circle there. And you can fill in. And make some of the lines thick. Some of these areas like this. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do little circles. Like that. And that will still leave a little bit of lightness to it, but it makes it the dark center. All right. We're going to move down here. Let's do our leaf, kind of squiggly. Like so. Like so. Make the circle. These leaves have a lines to them. Okay. And I'm going to make it a little darker through here. Like that. Okay. We'll outline this flower. Okay. That. All right. Little circles and again in the center. Okay. And the same thing with this leaf. It's got the vein here. This. You might want to slow down as you're doing this instead of too quickly, because that way it doesn't It's too easy for it to go off the page there. Right. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a little line going down like this into the petals. Not on every single one, but some of them. Like that. Well, might end up doing most of them. All right, that gives that little texture, and this one needs it too, right here. All right, I like that. And you can just randomly, carefully put a few dots like this out onto where you did the, if you did the dark, the black out here. Add a little texture to that shading like that. I'm going to do the same here, just a few little random dots. Okay, like that. That gives it some dimension. Let's finish off these flowers here. I want this to go this way around. It's got to be this petal. I don't want it to look like, there we go. Be careful I didn't. Okay. Everybody doing all right? Just keep going around like this. Like that. Do your center. Little tiny circles. I fill in some of those circles there. And then I'm going to put the lines for the petals. Like that. And because I've got it dark right here, I'm going to, it's called stippling. It's little dots. And it just creates a shadow. Now this is a totally different, I usually like things that are a lot brighter, lighter. This one is actually turning out quite dark, but it looks great, looks fine. Not everything you do will you absolutely love, but always look for what you do love in it, all right? Look for what you do love in it. And always remember it's just a piece of paper. So you can rip it out and start over, but I don't know that I would. Because it has a little story it's telling. Everything is unique about it. Let's see, we need these petals over here on this side. There we go. And there again, I'm going to put the little lines for they're just kind of criggly little. I lift my marker up so that it's not as solid. Excuse me. Yeah, it's just sort of a wiggly little, lift your marker up and then jump over a little ways and finish it off. Just like that. This one I'm going to do the circles larger. See that? And it makes it so that the center is not as dark as the others. I am going to put the little dots on here. The stippling is the correct term, actually. Not quite as much as I've done the others, but it just gives it some depth and shadowing. Careful you don't do it too fast because it just starts turning into dashes. Okay, we're going to finish off with our 2 leaves here, and then we'll pull up the tape. Okay, so we've got our little squiggly line. Get the center of it. And we'll start doing these. I'm even having those be a little squiggly too. I don't want them to be super straight. Okay. So now I'm not pushing really hard. I'm just letting it kind of glide across the page because I don't want it to. Be this super heavy dark line. Okay. All right. There we go. Now let's lift off that turned out really great. I actually do like that. I wasn't too sure as I was doing it. But let's see what happens now. This is the unveiling. They lift this up so you can see it. Let's see if we have, this is looking good, looking like it's working. I'm actually seeing things I probably would go back and add after, and that is for the background. I would want to add some of this orange into the background over here by the blue. Blue and orange are complements. So now that it's dried, I don't know, we could see, but it feels like it just needs not a lot. I'm talking just a drop or two, you know. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see. There. Oh, I don't know. I'm liking it. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me take you off of. Stop sharing the screen here. All right. This is Kathy Freeman with realpositivechange.com. Please join over into our group, the RPC, the Artisan's Journey. And it's a free group. Love to have you over there. When you finish your work, just post it so we can see what you did, and we can encourage you. And join me again. I'll be back on next Monday. Yep, I will be. I'll be heading off for the new grandbaby after that, but I will be back on next Monday. So I'll see you then.